Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We are just a couple of days out from Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 from debuting in theaters. That's really going to show Disney pretty much exactly what their competition is going to be all about. There's a lot of things going on too though, however, with everything that has been going on behind closed doors related to the board, as well as actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge, we're going to be covering every single bit about this huge development involving Phoebe's firing by Disney and how the situation has gotten even worse. Now, coming out of the overall box office results right now for Indy 5, it stands roughly at 171 million, which really isn't all that impressive at all. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that there's a lot of things going on right now with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Now, given that she was the main drive into why this movie was so unlikable for a lot of fans out there, including, of course, how the character is basically leading the way and taking Indy's place at many portions of this film. And one thing about Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I must add, is that we know that this is a person that's very ego-driven, very much illogical, and really doesn't really care about the fans, and she's always downplayed the fans, called them names, stuff like that. You know, we went over this just yesterday about how basically, or 2 days ago, how basically she called fans posers, essentially, if you don't like, you know, the way Indy 5 is presented with a female lead being in the actual movie. Now, on top of this, what's really intriguing has a lot to do with what's going on behind closed doors, involving, of course, the board and Bob Iger's decision with Phoebe Waller. Now, with actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the main star promoting Indy 5, even more so than Harrison Ford, much drama has been happening behind closed doors at Disney involving the Disney board and Bob Iger. However, one major development involves the firing of Phoebe Waller-Bridge that just got more intense, where recently Waller-Bridge was fired from the Lando series as part of the Disney Plus streaming service as L337, where she was going to both be the voice of the Millennium Falcon in present time and L337 in flashbacks. Since Dial of Destiny's failure, she was completely let go from that show and fired. However, to make matters worse, the board is currently split on firing her altogether from the planned Indy 5 sequel, which is still in development. Phoebe was also set to play in a total of 4 regular Disney movies not associated with Star Wars and Indiana Jones that she was also completely fired from, and since the Indy 5 sequel is totally based on expanding Helena's story, and many members of the board are reluctant on firing her from that installment. After her firing by Disney, however, for the Lando show and that series and putting a halt to that character L337 altogether, the Lando show is now facing much trouble as well and facing a potential cancellation. Now, the board is panicking over the Indy 5 box office results, with Lucasfilm set to lose a large amount of money on Indy 5. Now, guys, let me stop here for 1 second about this. Now, we know that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is somebody that has been pretty much, you know, very self-absorbed. She always downplays fans. She did this with Solo: A Star Wars Story for people that did not like the droid, you know, calling fans once again posers, just like she did in Indy 5 when people didn't like how Indy 5 was presented. Same exact thing, and it just makes you wonder to yourself, why does a Lucasfilm hire people like this, that name call people, that put people on the spot, and stuff like that? We've seen this time and time again over at Lucasfilm, and what really needs to happen here is the board really needs a restructuring. Alright, so we know one thing about the board right now is that they made a great decision, at least I feel, with her firing from the Lando series and those 4 Disney movies that were going to be released throughout the rest of the 2020s. We know that she's reportedly in Alien Romulus for 2024 as an android called Rook, but that's the overall big development right now, so that should be interesting to see what's going to happen with that movie if Phoebe Waller-Bridge is actually in it. You know, that's, I think, going to be a very big challenge for the audience. Now, when you look at stuff like this too, we know that the board is panicking, and they are in a phase of having all these emergency meetings about How do we fine-tune, you know, everything related to the Star Wars franchise, to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to our regular Disney films? You know, that's what they're thinking, basically. How do we fine-tune all of that? And it's all a matter of canceling out specific projects and greenlighting new ones. That's basically their new plan right now. And so, everything from Phoebe Waller-Bridge, alright, it just goes to show you that everything related to Indy 5 has been a disaster. It's been an abomination. There's been a lot of problems arising out of this film. I mean, look, they're only sitting at 170 million worldwide. And yet, you have Mission Impossible coming out in, like, what now, 3 days on the official release date? You know, technically the 11th. Some people got to see it in Hong Kong. I know some of you guys out there reported back to me, and you loved the movie. So, already people loved this movie way more than Indy 5, for those of you that came back forward to me and talked about it. And that just goes to show you what Disney's competition is looking like, and why they actually created that green light for their spy film series, moving onwards. Now, on top of this, one of the Disney movies that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was fired from also was set to focus on an all-female-led movie that was going to involve Phoebe as the main star of what they labeled as a film set in 1900s London. She was also let go and fired from this project as well, and the list is continuing to bundle up after what's been happening with Indy 5's numbers. Also, during Disney's emergency meeting a couple days ago, a blame game was running strong, and Phoebe Waller's portrayal of the character Helena Shaw was a major player in the blame game between the board members of why Indy 5 failed at the box office. Now guys, look, I don't think it's mainly because of Phoebe Waller-Bridge why this movie is failing. It's a big reason, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it has to do with a couple of other factors. Number one, I don't think that the younger generation really cares or knows about Indiana Jones fully or understands it truly. Number two is that they went way overboard with the budget, let's be honest. This could have been easily maybe $180 to $200 million film, budget-wise. And if they had done that, they would have broke even, or they would have made some kind of money out of it a little bit. But right now, you have 300 million plus going into this film, and you're stagnant at 171 million worldwide. That's not good. And you gotta remember this too, guys, is that they don't get all of the revenue. The movie theaters do take a pretty good chunk from any ticket sale. So you gotta put that into effect too, which is something that's always overlooked and never fully discussed. So that's another problem, and Disney knows that's a problem. And that's exactly why, from now on, we've talked about this, why that emergency meeting took place. They are going to be capping a lot of budgets with their upcoming movies, with their upcoming shows, stuff like that. There's been also a lot of rumblings out there that Mandalorian Season 4, that budget is also going to be capped and lowered from the initial budget of $20 million per episode. So it just goes to show you how panicky Disney is getting after all of this. So guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.